I'm El Ninja Cupcake.
And I'm Haley.
And we have Vinny, who is also known as the illustrious DM to D&D Grandma.
Hello!
Welcome! So great to have you with us today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you.
We are very, very excited over here at Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
I liked your J impression. It was good. And I am not your DM, Haley. Let's start out with our traditional segment, Dungeon Crawl.
Yes, we will kick it off with that.
Yes. Well, first, I have to say, since we're recording it on the day, this will be in the past once this comes out, but I have to say a happy birthday to the wonderful Amy T. Falcone, who did our cute chibi avatar faces. I hope you had a lovely birthday from the past.
Yes, she deserves the world, for sure.
So, I'll kick us off. I've been very excitedly following the developments on the Hell's Bells Twitter account. That's Hell's Bells spelled Belles. And they've been posting some very mysterious posts of different images and glyphs, sigils. I think we talked about this last time, the difference between glyphs and sigils and runes. But they've been posting some mysterious things, and we've been getting some more announcements of who our players are. We had our first PC announcement today. It looks like Kayla is going to be playing a tiefling Circle of Sports druid named Pentar Nightbranch Rotwater. So I've just been very excitedly looking at the account page, and it looks like we're going to be seeing some very cool art by Kayla. And one of our past guests, the amazing Mazmataz, is going to be DMing. And it looks like there will be some Modrons and some Planescape, and I'm pretty excited for kind of a different flavor D&D show.
I can't wait to see Maz DM.
I know. It was really exciting. If you haven't listened to that episode, we talked a lot about DM styles and questions and advice from Maz, and so you should definitely check out that interview. They had some great advice for all you DMs out there, and it'll be really exciting to see how this game progresses.
The teasers have been great. I'm sure we'll keep you updated as things come along.
It took me until this very moment to realize you said Circle of Spores and not Circle of Sports.
Circle of Sports could also be an interesting druid class.
This whole time, like, Circle of Sports? Is that another Arcana? What is that?
That doesn't sound like the typical Dungeons & Dragons experience.
We are here for homebrew. Well, this past week, everybody knows by now that I bleed green flame, and C-Team is...
Green flame!
Yes, green flame! C-Team is my jam. This past week has been no exception. And Haley, if you're not caught up, I am so sorry.
I'm gonna cover my ears.
We got to see the rebirth of Oak Truestrike in his beautiful, naked, cocky demigodness from the satchel of 1 Dinar Blitzin. I would be amiss if I didn't tell you that I greatly appreciated how Jerry RP'd this character, and I think he had a blast doing it. I don't think you can do it any other way. I hate Oak, but I was kind of like, I get you. I get it. And Rosie enjoyed it too. So we not only got to see Oak, but Walnut finally gets to meet Omen. Really?
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to catch up.
It is so worth it. And like, it was precious because you can see how much Amy and everybody else at the table just loves AI as a fan on top of being part of the franchise. So you've got that. And then we were left with the teaser that we are going to have Jared from the Waffle Crew coming in and being on next week's show, which will probably be today's show since we're recording this in the past. Very excited.
Get hype.
You gotta catch up, Haley. You really do.
I know. It's the challenges of having like out of town guests and
a real life.
Real life. Yeah, you're getting in the way of my Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry, friends. but this is my life now.
I'm gonna get you one of those sleep masks with the headphones, and we're just gonna let you play them in your sleep so you
All
can
the
dream
time.
it.
Well, I've been also really distracted by, so usually I get my podcast listening in the car, but I've been really distracted by listening to this podcast, Business Wars, which they've covered a lot of different big companies, but they did a segment of a few episodes on the Marvel versus DC and the whole background and a lot of progression of that. And it was actually really interesting. So I really got sucked into that. And now they did a Sony and Nintendo one. Yeah. So I started that one and I was like, I need to catch up on C-Team, but I also want to listen to this. How can I listen to 2 podcasts at the same time? That's not possible, unfortunately.
There will be a way in the future.
Yes.
Technology has not caught up to us.
One podcast in one ear, the other podcast in the other.
That'd be a time saver, that's for sure.
Innovations here. You heard it first on Inside Check.
We better trademark this so that we don't lose it. Like
Yeah.
the people who developed Google.
Yes.
We'll be rich, I'd say.
Yes, for the
I'm your
small
witness.
subset of people who are like me and just want to do too many things at once.
Vinny, have you had anything that has caught your eye or ear this week in the D&D world?
I read something, I don't know if it was this week or the week before, I lose track of time because, life. But I did read something that they're saying the new books coming out are going to be new settings. They're going to maybe the rumors of like a Dark Sun campaign setting book.
Oh.
I found that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear some rumblings about that they'll do some of the, bring some of the older settings back into 5e, maybe some Dragonlance and things like that, so.
No more dragons.
That, and I saw, I wish I could find it again. I saw a piece of CR fan art that just absolutely tore me up.
There's that fandom produces the craziest fan art and some awesome cosplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some crazy talented people out there, and you all have my greatest admiration.
Same here, man. I've seen some really impressive stuff out there. That's just, my hat's off to those people.
It's so beautiful seeing that pop up on your Twitter feed every day. It brings you hope for the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes on this show, we ask and answer questions. This might be one of these times. What do we think?
Maybe. Yeah, let's try it,
It's a novel approach, I know.
It's a novel approach to this show, but we have some questions for our guests, so we can start there.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, you're on the spot now. Let's get maybe a brief introduction, like your background, a little, just a smidge, like how long have you been playing D&D, DMing, things like that?
I guess I'm fairly new to the hobby. I only got into it maybe like 4.5 years ago. It was something I'd always been curious about, but the people who I knew back in college who played and like just all through like different facets of my life, I never really had a group that I trusted to join. But maybe around, I'd say about 4.5 years ago, a group of close friends of mine at a barbecue were talking about getting a game together. And I thought to myself, well, it's now or never. So I turned and I'm like, you know what? I'd like to try that. That was it. I played one session and fell in love on day one.
Nice.
Maybe about, I think, 8 months after that, I started writing my first campaign, and I've been really DMing ever since.
Oh, nice. So you really fell into that DM role.
I did. I mean, it's finally, I've always just messed around here and there writing wise, but I never really had anything that I stuck with until this. Like it's an addictive outlet as far as writing goes.
I have a lot of respect for DMs and their creativity and storytelling. So my hat is off to you.
True.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a labor of love.
Do you tend to do more homebrew storylines, or do you do published adventures, or a mix of both?
I've never run a published adventure as written. I've used published adventures as inspiration. I've taken pieces of them. I've used like different levels of different dungeons, but I feel very constrained if I was going to try and run something exactly as it's written on the page. Number one, I'm a bit of a control freak with my stuff. I don't like other people telling me how to run it. And I just like having the freedom of being able to switch things up on the fly to make something a little harder if I think the party is just destroying whatever I put in front of them, to make it a little easier if I think this is going to be a total party kill and I don't want it to be. And just the freedom of just connecting worlds the way that I want them connected. So I use all sorts of inspiration, but ultimately when we sit down, it's homebrew.
Totally makes sense. We've definitely heard from a lot of people when we've chatted about published adventures, and I tried my hand at running my first published adventure as like a way to help me kind of learn more about DMing. But what the biggest advice I got from people was really to make it my own anyway, and not try to stick like entirely to just what's written on the page. So
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
I know most of us would know you through your fantastic page, the D&D Grandma page. And I've been dying to know how you decided to start playing as a family and how this whole thing came about.
It all just kind of fell together, to be honest with you. I had started a game. I had two games going at once for beginners who wanted to learn. One was my wife, her sister, and a friend of ours. And then my wife was playing in the other group with my sister and my brother-in-law. And the friend we were playing with just kind of broke off, and we joined her sister up with my sister and my brother-in-law. And it was actually my wife's idea. I was like, I think this would be good for your mother. And we decided to, invite her. And Mom very trepidatiously agreed to play one session with us. And if you asked her to this day, she'll say she never thought she'd be in it for the long haul. She thought, I'll do it one night. It'll be a fun night with the kids. But she's the bug's bitten her pretty hard. She's pretty addicted to it now.
That's so awesome. So it took a little bit of convincing to get her to give it a try.
It did. It did take a little bit of convincing, and she was very overwhelmed at first because when we put the player's handbook in front of her, she was like wide-eyed staring at it, like those are the rules. That's the rule book. She's like that's an encyclopedia. That's not a rule book. We were very patient with her. My wife especially is awesome when it comes to just teaching new players and being very patient, taking them by the hand. And it's still a work in progress, but as far as like learning the mechanics of the game, but that's something we always tell Mom, just don't worry about that. Just play your character, tell your story, and when it comes to the mechanics, we'll help you out. It's not a big deal.
I think that's really perfect, because I think Cupcake, I don't know how you feel, but like when I first started, because I'm a newer player, I've been playing, I'm coming up on a year of playing D&D, but it feels like I just started playing yesterday. And I had listened to streams for so long, like years, but I was like, I could never play this game. I don't know how. Yeah. And no one's going to want to teach me how to play. I'm just going to slow everyone down.
It seems super intimidating.
It really does, especially like I don't have any, like the people that I've connected with and played with are people that I've met like through the community online, and I don't really have any like people that I know here in person, or didn't at the time, that I could like sit down with and play with. So it was a little extra intimidating that I didn't like have a group of friends who wanted to play and we couldn't be like figuring it out together. So I think it's really great to have people like that who are just willing to be patient and take the time with new players.
I think it's essential. My first 6 months playing, everyone laughs at me when I tell the story because they think I'm joking, but it's the truth. For the first 6 months, I just threw the dice and I had the other people tell me what happened. I was like, okay, what are we doing? All right, I'm swinging this. There's the die. What did I just do? Like, for like 6 months, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just having fun with it.
That would be so entertaining.
Yeah. Seriously. It was just like, okay, cool. I rolled a 14. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Do you have any advice on changing people's perceptions of D&D or getting people to give it a shot who have maybe heard negative things about D&D or have been too afraid to try it?
The way that I find that brought the most people into it, because we actually have like I play with like 5 different groups, and each is like a monthly game, and with the exception of one of those groups, everyone else at the table is beginners, and like all the other groups, because we just keep bringing in, and anyone who mentions any sort of interest, it's like, oh, come into my parlor, said the spider to the fly.
Right.
I just, come on in. And one of the ways that I find brings people in, it's like, I'll say, do you watch Lord of the Rings, or do you watch Game of Thrones, or do you watch anything along those lines? And almost always the answer is yes, as long as I hit the right, the right fandom. The game basically works. It's that but you're writing the story as you play it. That's essentially what it is. You're acting in a show like that, only you're at a table with friends, and the story is being written as you play. And that's how my friends explained it to me, and I've got a lot of success with that. I don't even know how many new people we've brought to the game, but that's usually what gets them in.
I like that because I've been trying to convince some of my friends to give it a shot, but they definitely have like very stereotyped opinions.
Yeah.
I
And
completely understand.
I'm like, no, it's fine. You can give it a shot.
Yeah, and there's some people that, I mean, there's some people that you'll never change their mind. This is, this is kid stuff. This is geeky stuff. But I mean, I have found in my experience with the people that I've talked to about it, that tends to be the minority. Almost always I'll get someone who either, it might not be for them, it might not be something they want to do, but they respect it and they're like, okay, cool, that's not my thing, but you're having fun, power to you. But I've had a lot of pleasant experiences. As we're sitting here talking, my wife's on the couch next to me. She's doing the math. I think it's like we have 10 different people in all the groups that we play with who've never played before until they sat down with us.
That's awesome. I hope to someday be in that situation. I'm slowly working on them, but because I would love to run a game for like my boyfriend and his friends, and they're all huge Game of Thrones fans, and I'm like, this would be really fun, guys, and they're like, no, D&D is for nerds.
Like, you're watching Game of Thrones, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
But at
someday.
that point, someday, that's it. That's just really it. Someday. But it's just, I found that's the easiest thing, is like find something in common that'll connect them in. That's like a backdoor in as far as how to get them to the table. Game of Thrones works, Lord of the Rings, Beastmaster, the Conan movies, anything like that.
Just the fantasy stuff. I've heard it described as you're basically sitting down and having an argument with dice.
An argument,
but
with
I
dice.
like it's like a
I like
gateway. It's like,
That's
you like
pretty
Lord of the
cute.
Rings? Here, let's do this, and we'll tell a story. But the whole time, you have to argue your position with dice.
That's strangely accurate.
I like it. Yeah, I like that. That's one of the things that I've kind of just wondered a lot about, because as we all know, D&D had some rough press back in the 80s.
Right, they got a bad rap.
But I hear a lot of like, people were murdered. And I'm like, can we still think that? Is this still a thing that people think? Are we past this yet? But
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and some of the people that I've even recently talked to, like, it really seems like we haven't. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me that mindset is still out there. I've come across it myself.
Yeah.
I think, what was it, Jerry Holkins would tell a story about how when he started playing D&D, it was still very much believed it was like the game of the devil, and that he even had to change his mom's opinion on things, and now she comes to some of the cons and stuff for him.
I know, I love that. I would totally.
That's awesome.
That's my goal. # goals. Convince people.
Hashtag goals is right.
Yes. Because I think that D&D has had such a positive impact on my life and the lives of people that I know. So I would love to be able to share it with more people.
I couldn't agree with that more. Absolutely.
Like, on that note, actually, have you noticed any like changes in your dynamics or seen any like impacts from playing together as a family?
Oh, 100%. It's absolutely made the family closer. 100%. I've noticed changes individually, like how my mother in life in general is a little bit more confident in some of her choices now. She's a little more confident in herself than she used to be. And I've seen differences just in the family group, like in and of itself. We're closer knit, we're tighter. We're just a closer family. And I mean, the family itself has expanded. Like my wife's sister plays with the rest of us. And I mean, it's an in-law, but we don't think of it that way at the table anymore. It's just one big family playing together, hanging out. And it's, we actually played a game on Christmas Eve. My wife ran a Tal'Dorei one-shot for us. And on Christmas Eve, we all got together and gamed. And that's life goals for me right there.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
There's
that
more
was
hashtag goals. This episode will just be called hashtag goals.
hashtag goals.
Hashtag goals.
Yeah, if I don't know if either of you have Facebook, but if you follow us on Facebook, we're the family that games together is the name of the group on Facebook. The cover photo, which is a selfie of me and I've got the table behind me, that was taken at our Christmas Eve during our Christmas Eve game.
I think I would love to get to the point where I'm comfortable enough to DM a game and just tell my family that we're gonna play on Christmas or something like that. And just say, like, we're gonna do this. Keep it really short and just go for it. But like they're not huge. It's been a process even to get them to play board games, so we'll get there. Slow baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah, that's all. Baby steps.
Got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, truth.
So what's the best part as playing as a family?
Oh, wow, that's hard because there's a lot. I'm sorry, babe?
I was going to say, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but I'm just going to say, like, honestly, the jokes that we share together.
Yeah, I would say that is like the
inside
banter.
Jokes we make.
The banter between us, like just some of the one-liners that come out is that's a lot of fun. It's just rolling with it when you hit those silly moments that just hits everybody at the right time and you're just belly laughing, and when you're done you're just like, that was so stupid, why did we laugh so hard? But it's just it's just one of those things.
I'm here for stories if you want to share any of these.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's the best part of D&D.
There's one I had everybody on I decided to incorporate Taldore into my world. I basically moved my world into Exandria. And so I had them sailing from the continent that I had homebrewed to the new land, which was going to be Taldore. And on the way there, I had them, as you do in D&D, I had them get attacked by pirates. And my mother played a bard in that campaign. And because we already had several healers, she decided she was going to, when she got the additional secret suite, she was going to take more damage spells. So she saw Fireball and her eyes lit up. And she goes, oh, I want that. And they leveled up right before they got on the ship. So she hadn't casted Fireball ever yet. So when the pirate ship shows up, obviously they don't know that I've got a really high level magic hoard at the bottom of that pirate ship, because they're pirates, they've been sailing, they've been looting, there's all kinds of gold and magic items and all kinds of good stuff. So when they're about 100 feet out, it's her turn, and she steps up to the side of the ship and she says, I cast Fireball on the ship. And I'm like, okay, you know what, just to let you know, the ship is made of wood. And she makes eye contact with me and she says, I didn't ask about the ship. I said Fireball. I went, okay, fine.
All right.
But it was worth it. Absolutely. I had the ship sink because I knew that's what she was going for, and no one even cared really about the lost gold or the lost magic items because it was just such a great in-game moment.
Oh, that's so good.
When Mama tells you she wants to cast Fireball,
you listen.
Fireball.
I said, yes, ma'am. Cast your Fireball.
Roll your dice.
Well, we actually just finished that campaign this past weekend. We live streamed on our Facebook the epilogue as I gave everyone a little send off. That character was Melly, a halfling bard, and that was her. Now we are playing a brand new campaign. I've handed over the reins to my sister-in-law, so she's DMing, and I get to step onto the other side of the DM screen and be a player, which is pretty cool. And
awesome.
Her new character is Bree, a halfling rogue, and she just kind of smiled and says, "What can I say? I like halflings." So.
That's great. She should talk to our friend Becca. She's a big halfling connoisseur. She's played a halfling rogue, a halfling sorcerer, I believe. She really likes halflings. Anyway, have you played any of the new campaign yet?
Yes, we when the epilogue was done, we took a little bit of a break. And then my sister-in-law took over, and we played a good, I don't know, maybe 6 hours. And
wow,
it's pretty good. Her concept is like ancient Rome, ancient Greece. It's like a war between the gods type thing, and the gods have all chosen different champions. So it's a really cool concept. And
cool.
We had our
that
first.
Cool.
Yeah, it is. She did a hell of it. She was very concerned because it's her first time DMing, but I had no doubts, and neither did anyone else, and she killed it.
That's awesome.
We had one of our first really funny moments too. We're trying to sneak into a maze, and of course we send the rogue first. So my mother's Bree sneaks into the first room, and there's a giant ape hucking boulders at her as she comes
Oh.
in. And of course, no one else in game knows that. We're all outside, but out of game, we're all like, so do you want to yell down to us that there's something in there or what? And she's like, no, I'll take care of it. And she draws her bow and just starts shooting it. She ended up killing the thing. Before any of us got in there, she killed the freaking ape. We're like, this is not real. This is not real. Yeah, it was totally like that. I was like, no, don't worry, I got this.
That's awesome.
It was so ridiculous. It worked. It was great.
I love her. Like, she sounds so sassy and confident, and I love it.
Like, she's her own worst critic. Like, she thinks she's not, and she's very, gets in her own head and, doesn't want to come out of her shell. But outside looking in, absolutely. She's very sassy, and she can be very confident. When she has a plan and she executes it, it's a hell of a thing to watch.
That's
I'm going to take us back to hashtag goals.
Yeah, exactly. Bring it back around. I do find that D&D has really helped me with that. Like, when I first started playing, I would kind of have an idea, and it'd be like, hey, what do you think about this? And now I'm just like, all right, here's what I think, or here's what's happening. I'm still getting there, but I think D&D really helps with that.
100%.
For sure.
100%. It also helps to add little, if you think about it in a certain way, it helps to add like little in-life jokes. Like, if we're walking through the house and like I'll be going up the stairs and I'll slip, and my wife will be like, "Baby, okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just failed my dex check."
Oh, jeez.
Stuff like that.
When you've got a family dynamic in a group like that, I'm sure it just opens up for like little family jokes and personal jokes to where you can put things into the game just to mess with the player a little bit as well as the PC.
Oh, I totally agree. Everyone just kind of developed their own character, and they each had their own little things that they liked, and I just kind of played to the character.
I might also be a little sad if at your mom's next birthday, her birthday cake doesn't have a pirate ship sinking on it.
Fireball cupcakes.
There we go.
That is. I'm gonna throw in hashtag goals right there.
Hashtag goals.
Fireball cupcakes, babe. Write that down.
Are there any things that you think are kind of more specific to running a family game versus a more general game, or do you run them? Would you think of them as pretty much the same?
They're fairly similar. The only difference being is that I always say you have to understand your players in terms of what kind of fun they like to have. That's really it. I guess maybe I try to be on my best behavior in terms of letting the players be the players with my family, just because it's my family. And I know one of my flaws as a DM is I will get impatient if there's a stall with the players. It's like, guys, I got a good story here. I want you to play it. Like, let's stop discussing if we're going to open the door or not. Stuff like that. I'll get impatient. And it's something I try to work on. It's a little easier, I guess, with my family because it's my family. Whereas if I'm playing with my friends, I'll be like, guys, come on, it's just a door. Open it. Let's go.
Yeah, I think that's something that we touch on a lot. And I think it's really important to making sure that you know what kind of things people like and what they find funny, and letting those beats happen. Like with the pirate ship, I mean, you could have been like, okay, you do some damage with your fireball. But
exactly.
Since you know that the ship is full of treasure, maybe you say, but it doesn't sink because
there's a wand of water walking.
Or it's actually magically fire resistant, but that would have taken away the fun from that moment.
Correct. And I knew she wanted to sink the ship. I knew that's what she was going for, so I just went with it. And that's what I said about like knowing your players and understanding like what they find fun, and just kind of catering to that style.
What are some ways that you use as a DM to get to know your players a little bit better? Because I know each DM is a little bit different.
I'll run different styles of gaming early on. Like I'll have the little different self-contained stories that I try to have a main thread that they all go back to, but I'll have self-contained stories and each one is a different style of gaming, and I just kind of see what they react to. Like I have one group of friends that I play with that I DM for. It's my wife, actually her sister again, and then one of my friends. They gravitate more towards, it's very sandboxy. They like to be in cities, they like to explore, they like to role play, they like to see what's going on, they like to investigate, basically live the game. type thing. There's another group we play with that's all beginners. It's a friend of mine from work and his sister, his girlfriend. They could care less about characters, investigating. They want to go through the dungeon, they want to kill the things, and they want to get the gold. Like, so with them, I don't waste time on setting up all these cool NPCs and all these whatever. Okay, you see this, you kill it, you get this. Let's move on, because that's how they have fun. So it's all, and that was the first thing that I ran for them. So I'm not even going to bother building cities when they're done with this dungeon. It'll just be on to another dungeon because clearly that's what they're having fun with. So
Right.
it's sort of just, it's kind of feeling your way around a little bit and just seeing what they react to. And if you get something that everyone is reacting to, start focusing your campaign more on that style.
That's actually a really, really good point.
A lot of trial and error on my part.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting because I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm a big feedback person, but like sometimes you can't really get that feedback just by asking people like, did you like this? Like, I'm sure people will have fun. You can have fun doing a little bit of anything, but if you want it to turn into a long-term campaign, you've really got to have a little bit for everyone. And maybe it was fun for one session, but it's not really fun for 3 months. Or so I think kind of having a balance maybe of that. As you can tell, I'm trying to break into DMing, so I think about these things a lot.
I totally get it. I still think about it.
It's good. I think it's a quest to always be improving.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And feedback is great, but I mean, it's rare for me for a player to say, yeah, I had fun, Ben, but that one part you did right there, that wasn't really fun. I'd like you to not do anything like that again. I don't really have people tell me that. I don't know if it's like, because it's a comfort thing. They don't want to insult you, so it's always like, oh, no, it was great. It was a lot of fun. So I've learned to read them at the table in the moment. Like, okay, you're not really enjoying this dungeon crawl that much. Note to self, don't do this next session. Do something different, so it's all about reading your players.
Well, as a player too, I think it's really important to be exposed to new things because I could be like, hey, I love to RP in town all day long, but then I may not know that I like this other thing because I haven't done it yet.
Exactly.
Right. Like at our game last night, through an interesting series of events, 2 of us ended up in the Shadowfell, and I tried to use plant growth because I am a nature cleric to grow some food, and I got a bunch of like shriveled up and sad food, but I was like, this is the farming simulator I've always wanted. Like,
Jesus.
It was
That's
great.
awesome.
It was just a moment. I definitely wouldn't want to have an entire game of Farming Simulator D&D.
No,
But
of course.
it was kind of interesting to have like just little different types of moments like that. And you're right, if you're only ever playing dungeon crawls, you might not know that you really like to go have tavern brawls with your friends or go shopping all the time. I don't know, whatever floats your boat.
Correct. And I find that some of my most fun D&D moments were when my character screwed up royally. It's rolling the 1. When you roll the 1 on that key check that you have to make and you fail, those are some of the most memorable moments.
Absolutely. That moment of dread when it shows up 1 before you tell everybody else.
Right. Or the like, all right, we know we're missing something, but we don't know what. Especially when it's that perception check. It's like, well, I don't see anything.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
Temporary blindness. That's awesome. I like to ask all of our guests, if you had one piece of D&D related advice, either player or DM or both, what advice would you give to our listeners?
As a DM, my piece of advice would be confidence is so important, and it's just know your story. Like I find that as long as you have a good story, everything else will work it out. As long as you have a good story and a good group, and you're all supportive, everything else will work itself out. Don't get over focused on the mechanics, or what if they deviate from the path? What if they go this way? If they go left, but I want them to go right? Or what if I don't know how to run the hill giant correctly? Don't worry about stuff like that. If you have a good story, everything else will work out. As a player, just go with it. Just have fun. That's really what it's all about. If you're not having fun, something's wrong. I don't like rules lawyering because I feel like the fun is more important to me. And it's like, if as long as everyone at the table is having fun, who cares that I'm letting them re-roll something that I shouldn't be? Everyone's having a good time. What's the difference? So those would be my 2 big pieces of advice there.
Very sound advice.
Thank you.
So I ran a ladies' night game for Cupcake was one of my players, and also Jerika and Rebecca Flair, who have both appeared on this podcast previously. And there were a couple times where I got really anxious about the rules, and I was like, hey, guys, is this how this works? Like, how does this work? What happens when you roll the save DC on the thing? What happens when they're the same number? How does that work? I just had like a moment of panic, and then I was like, you're the DM. You could have just made a decision. But then there were a couple other things where I ran some monsters, and a couple of them I didn't have official stat blocks for. This is a secret I'll let you in on. But I just let the combat go on for a few rounds until it felt like we'd had a valid combat. And then I was like, this is good enough. I'm good.
I like that, actually.
Good for you. Good for you. Seriously.
I was like, this seems like it's had the right amount of tension, but it wasn't too easy, but no one has died. Let's
good for
kill
you.
them now. And then I
applaud that.
I was like, if anyone were, if this was recorded, I would be attacked. The wolves would come out and say, actually, these monsters have this many hit points, and they died in the first round of your combat.
I don't pay attention to that.
Well, it's not a shadow dragon, so I think we're okay.
Oh, yeah. That's the doom that's coming to us.
The best combat I ever ran. It was I had my second campaign I ever DM'd. It was a group of friends. I had the party in a tavern that got swarmed by vampire swarm, by a swarm of vampire spawn, and the party had to spread out all over the place, and it was just chaos, and everyone had a great time with it. And the spawn ended up breaking into the innkeeper's bedroom, and they got into the room, but the party stopped them in time. And then when the battle was all over, one player goes, wait a minute, this shouldn't have even happened. This is a residence. Vampire spawn aren't allowed in a residence. Inside for a second, I went, oh, damn it, he's right. Vampires
You did it wrong.
can't enter a residence. And then I just went, well, in my world, they can. Put the rule book down.
There was a welcome mat.
Yeah, I just made the call right then and there. No, we're just going with this. It was an awesome combat. We're not ruining it.
It's true. I try to strike a balance because I'm totally, like, into the lore and the stories and, like, knowing the specific details about the D&D universe in general, and since I'm newer to it, I don't know the names of the monsters, don't have the association that maybe they do for other people, so I try to strike a balance between wanting to look them up for my own knowledge, but not wanting to be like, oh yes, and this character has resistance to cold damage, so I will, like, you know, I try to keep a balance there.
That's
for
fine.
myself. But it's a little bit of a struggle as a newer player. That's what I struggled with, wanting to try to learn everything, but also just kind of let things happen organically, I guess.
You'll never learn everything. There's just too much there. So but that's awesome that you're striving for that. I think that's great. You know, don't let the fact that you're new to this, you know, intimidate you. I find that the newer DMs, the newer players tend to be the most creative because they're thinking outside the box. They're not thinking about the best way to mechanically run this dragon. They're just having fun with it, and they're just really just doing some of the most creative stuff. So just to me, that's a benefit. That's not a detriment that you're newer to it.
I appreciate that.
I would like to know, as a family, what is your favorite kind of D&D snacks?
The snacks.
Definitely like either chips or like vegetable sticks with homemade dips. We do salsas, we do guacamole, and my wife does homemade hummus, which is to die for.
Delicious.
To die for. And of course, the best D&D dinner we have found has been taco night.
Oh, tacos and D&D?
You're welcome.
That sounds great.
Are you
You're welcome.
adopting new family members?
Yeah, if you're taking applications for new family, this is why I want to get like a home group of like I love my online group. I love my D&D family. But I also really want to have like snacks and D&D be a thing in my life.
Yes.
So.
It's awesome.
It's not quite the same when you sit by yourself and you eat your D&D snack.
It's cool when you graduate past the Ilios pizza and Oreo cookie stage and you're eating homemade hummus and tacos and stuff.
Grown-up junk food.
Grown-up junk food, yeah.
It's perfect.
That's amazing.
Nice. Before we wrap up for the evening, can we get a quick tell our listeners where they can find more about you and your wonderful D&D family?
Absolutely. You could follow us on Twitter at D&D Grandma or on Facebook at the Family That Games Together Facebook group. I don't have a date for it yet, but in late October I am going to be running a charity D&D game for Real Women of Gaming.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I'm good friends with one of the women who runs that. We've done some charity work in the past together. I actually played in their charity game last year, and she asked me to run it this year. So stay tuned to our Facebook and Twitter for updates on dates, when that's going to be, when it's going to be streamed, how we can get donations in. It's going to be a good time. We're going to be playing from like 12 hours, from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that.
Totally awesome, and we will totally once that's announced, we'll give you some retweets.
Thank you very much.
It's an adequate amount of D&D. That is the appropriate interval to do D&D.
An adequate amount. I know, because of all of our schedules, we're stuck to like 2.5 hours a game.
Yeah.
And it just goes by so quick.
It really does. And Jay likes to end it on something terrible.
Yeah, it's always a scary cliffhanger. A shadow dragon erupted last night, and then it was like, good night.
I've had sessions that have gone 13, 14 hours.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's epic. We'll have in a snowstorm. Because it was just like,
oh, nice.
It's like, okay, the game's over. It's time to leave. Oh, it's snowing. Don't want to drive in this. Let's keep playing for another 4 hours.
That's awesome.
I'm like, I've got a fully stocked coffee bar and a can-do attitude. Don't threaten me, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're all spread out across a bunch of time zones, and
I get that.
So,
yeah.
Yep. But the wonders of the internet, at least we get to play together.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Insight Check. I hope you learned some valuable insights today. As always, thank you to Vince Wept for our intro and outro music, and to the lovely Amy T. Falcone for our artwork. If you could be so kind as to help us out and give us a 5-star review on iTunes, or tell your friends about the show, we would love that. We greatly appreciate all of you wonderful listeners.
If you'd like to have your questions answered, tweet us at InsightCheckPod or #InsightCheck to hear your questions answered on this show. And as always, answering your cues from our collective A's.
This
was
Insight Check. Yay!
Insight Check! Yay!
Insight Check! Yay!
No, Haley. I'm your DM.